Thank you for joining us for this presentation, Connections to Nature. I am Beverly Rayner, the Director and Curator at Cabrillo Gallery. With me is my colleague, Victoria May, who is the Art Gallery Coordinator. And I'd like to quickly introduce you to our presenters, and I'll do a little more in-depth introduction later. But as I say your name, please wave, say hello. Joe Cosentino, Tobin Keller, and Thiermann, Sylvia Rios, and Sean Peeler. All right, let's get the slideshow started, Vic. Okay, so every year Cabrillo Gallery presents an art faculty and staff exhibition. Sometimes it's a sabbatical show, and sometimes it's an exhibition that honors recent retirees, but most often it's a group show of all faculty and staff in the art photography, and art history program. There are over 30 artists in this exhibition who are staff, current instructors, or retired full-time instructors in those programs at Cabrillo. Their work covers a wide range of media, disciplines, and subjects, just like our arts program at Cabrillo. This exhibition gives our educators and our support staff a chance to share insights into their artistic practice with the Cabrillo students that they mentor and the community at large. This exhibition this year is titled Connections, because connecting is what our instructors and staff do so well. Connecting with students in their roles as mentors and supporters, and connecting ideas, methods, and media to teach their subjects. The title also refers to the fact that we are connecting with each other in person again, full-time, now that we all are fully back on campus after lots of online exhibitions and online learning. Next slide. If you'd like to see the Connections exhibition, this is the last week. The gallery is open for visitors through Friday. And our hours are there. You can see we're open 9 to 4 weekdays and 6 to 8 p.m. on Wednesday and Thursday night. The exhibition is beautiful. Please come and see it if you haven't. And if you want to stay informed about all of our programming, you can sign up for our email updates on the gallery homepage and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Next slide. We also have another artist talk coming up this Thursday at 6, also for this exhibition, called Connecting the Narrative, with Andrea Borsick, Janet Fine, Angela Gleason, Maggie Rinkowski, and Heather Gray. Next slide. Okay. I also want to let you know what's coming up at the gallery. Our next exhibition is Pilar Aguero Esparza Stratum. Her work is done largely in leather, dyed leather, colored leather. And she deals a lot with the ideas of skin tone, of economic and social strata, of issues of race and skin color. And a lot of her visual iconography is taken from huaraches, Mexican sandals. Her parents were sandal makers, and she learned that craft as a child, and she uses those things in her work to make her artwork. She's going to have a huarache making demo and a leather weaving workshop on Thursday, October 13th from 12 to 1:30 at the gallery. She's also going to have an online artist talk on Thursday, October 6th at 7 o'clock. All right, you can register in advance by emailing us at the gallery for the workshop, and we'll have, do we have the link for the, no, we don't. But if you go to our webpage, you can find the link also for her talk and get that up there. If you want, okay. Okay, if you want to sign up for our emails, there's a link on our homepage. All right. So today's talk is titled Connections to Nature. And it's the first of the 2 talks. In today's talk, these 5 artists will discuss their work in the exhibition that explores a variety of themes that make connections to the natural world. All right, next slide. We're going to start with Sean Peeler. Sean has a master's of photography from San Jose State University. He's been teaching photography and video at Cabrillo and many other places for 3 years, maybe more at other places. He also runs a mobile tintype studio where his focus is on portraiture. Take it away, Sean. Next slide.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for everyone for attending. The work that I'm showing today is part of a series of tintype portraits. Tintype is an antique photographic process from 1851. It's a series of tintype portraits that I made in 2021 and 2022 along the creek and green space of my hometown in Chico, California. And this tintype portraiture depicts people in states of grace entangled in a sublime landscape. This work represents my fantasy of a person congruous with the landscape, intimately connected to the natural world. I'm attracted to flowing creeks, extraordinary trees, and green spaces. Yeah, and so this series of portraits were made during the COVID pandemic. Working outside with the tintype process was a way for me to connect with my community and oftentimes connect with the landscape. These natural spaces in Chico and surrounding are places that hold a lot of sentimental value to me, a lot of artistic importance, but a lot of memories as well have been cultivated in these landscapes. I grew up in a rural space that and sort of my photographic practice started with me just walking around outside, spending a lot of time outdoors, photographing and documenting the landscape. This tintype process requires the use of a portable darkroom. So the entire process from creating a light sensitive emulsion, sensitizing it to light by the use of silver nitrate, exposing in camera, chemically developing, fixing, and processing has to take place while the plate is wet. That's where the term wet plate collodion comes from. And so it's a hands-on sort of laborious process that within an hour or two of working with a portrait subject on location with my portable darkroom, I might produce anywhere from 6 to 8 tintype portraits. There's some common themes and symbols in this series of work, this portraiture. Oftentimes when I'm going out working as a photographer, as a tintype portrait photographer specifically, I'm looking for real extraordinary trees and spaces that sort of define the native flora of that space, but also just become are sublime symbols of those natural spaces. And I want to integrate, entangle this portrait subject into these natural spaces so that the subjects look like they look sort of intimately connected to these spaces. The materials that I'm using and the lenses that I'm using are all from the 1800s. They impart a real dreamlike quality that, when combined with contemporary subjects, sort of bridge time to create portraits that elude the familiar. This is a series that's ongoing. Probably there's no real deadline. It's not a project that I'm working on with an exhibition in mind. It's sort of just a consistent practice of mine that exists beside all the other projects that I have going on for any given time. I'm working right now on a portrait and oral story project with Chico State students that in part works with the tintype process, but also collects portraits from students and oral stories about their experience of being a college student, working with historically underserved college communities. But beside that, this is sort of what drew me to photography in the beginning, which was sort of creating portraits and cultivating these creative experiences and collaborations in landscapes that hold a lot of sentimental value to me, and to create images that I find visually stunning and spectacular. So this is just a small part of this series, Untitled, that I've been working on since 2021, working with people in my community, friends, and others, making portraits, tintype portraits on the creek, just across the street from my house, actually. So. And I think that's all I have for today. But if you have any questions about the process, about my process or material, techniques, etc., I'd love to answer that in the Q&A after everyone else has had an opportunity to talk about their work. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Sean. I'm sure people do have questions. I know I do. All right, our next presenter is Thiermann. Anne received a BA in art from University of California, Santa Cruz, and an MFA from California State University, Long Beach. She's been teaching drawing and 2D design at Cabrillo for 13 years. Next slide.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me on a little journey through my love of trees. I'm starting with one of my first paintings done in, I think this was 1969. I grew up in Topanga Canyon within the Santa Monica Mountains, surrounded by California live oaks on our 8 acres. My dad was tree surgeon to the stars, Johnson and Tiermann Tree Company, servicing Hollywood stars like Marilyn Monroe. In one of my earliest watercolors, this particular one, my family is literally immersed in an oak-like trunk. Our relationships showing both open and twisted branches. And you can see my face is kind of reaching out to the right, and behind me, a troubled stepmother. Okay, next. After my BA in art from UCSC, I studied figure for 3 years in the New York City Art Students League. But to be honest, I frequently fantasized that instead of a figure on the model stand, there would be a tree. Upon returning to California, I brought the figure to the trees, emphasizing the musculature and sinews of any tree I painted or drew. These California oaks suggest the cycle of life with their robust trunks and branches and expressive root systems. Next. Rejuvenation in our current faculty show was created on location within the eucalyptus grove of the lower UCSC Arboretum. I was drawn to both the beauty and challenge of capturing her peeling bark, hanging like drapery from her translucent, majestic, uplifted limbs. I used a dark pastel to set off the drama of her transformative pose. Next, please. The intertwined roots of these 2 pines across a volunteer pathway at New Brighton reflects the underground inner world of the community of trees, which extends beyond and in addition to its roots. So you look closely, it's not just roots coming out of each tree, but there's one root that literally creates one of the steps on the volunteer path. There's actually several roots that create steps. Most recently, I actually we can stay back on that same slide. I'm moved by Dr. Suzanne Simard's scientific research in finding the mother tree. According to her extensive investigation, there's a rich mycorrhizal rhizome fungi network, which provides water and nutrients to seedlings around the mother tree perimeter. This network emanates from the oldest mother trees in a forest and connects not just one species, but several, helping with nutrients when trees are diseased and are dying. Next. When I paint a landscape with trees, I feel the interrelationship of the trees one to another. Communication between the young and old of the forest. Under the trees, I feel refreshed by their cooling effect, plus rejuvenated, inspired by the cycle of nature. Collectively, the trees feed one another just like we do in community, and visually, they seem to dance, bark twisting, foliage softly swaying in patterns of light. The way trees fill a 3D space efficiently, with each branch finding its particular placement, provides the artistic challenge to carefully indicate the intervals between branches and foliage. Next, at the center of the Henry Cal Redwood Grove Loop stands the 280-foot tall San Lorenzo giant on the left here. In 1902, Teddy Roosevelt posed for his famous picture in front of the San Lorenzo giant. This was some 50 years before it actually became a state park. And at that time, one of the trees was called the business card tree. The tree was covered with business cards. Today, we can really enjoy its more pristine nature. It's surrounded by second growth redwoods, which receive nutrients from this older mother tree. In the lower right image, I created a pastel of a fairy ring of redwood trees from Nicean marks. The branches of the trees literally dance in the afternoon light. Notice how the base of each group of trees is on a mound built up by the decay of older trees. Next, our beautiful Monterey Bay is edged with the arching, twisting tree forms of the Monterey cypress and pines. What a wonderful artistic challenge to paint that interaction of rock, water, and tree along our coastline. I've also carried my easel down to the Aptos Creek next to paint the trees as a community beside the stream flowing through Nicean marks. Every element within the forest appears interconnected. Next, from Western Drive, one can see the flow of riparian oaks down the Moore Creek ravine as it flows ocean-bound out through natural bridges. Beneath the moist willows at the base of the ravine, mammals, birds, reptiles, and people make their pathways along the west branch of this Moore Creek. Up on the edge of the ravine, the picture to the left, the rounded forms of oaks cast their shadows down into the ravine. And above, the silhouettes of more oaks spread on the surrounding UCSC meadows. Notice that the overall canopy of the oaks has a similar shape to the individual crenulated California live oak leaves, the large imitating the small.
You have 30 seconds left.
Okay, I'd like to end with two images of apple trees. In the spring, the bare winter branches grow first white buds and they give way to new leaves and then the delicious apples. Painting plein air gives me the three-dimensional vision to place the branches carefully in space. And last, the single tree and the trees as a group must dance together. Thank you for sharing my artistic journey among the trees.
Thank you, Anne. And now we're moving on to Joe Cosentino, also a tree person. Joe started out at Cabrillo College many years ago. Then he received a BA in studio practice with an emphasis in spatial art at San Jose State University. He has returned to us at Cabrillo, yay, to take the position of tool room coordinator a few years ago. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, and thank you everybody for having me. So yeah, my work for the most part focuses on simple patterns between forms in nature and the tools that we use are designed to harvest them. So simply like the way that trees resemble little saw teeth and that sort of thing. And a lot of my work focuses on sort of the resilience of nature and the rejuvenation, new growth coming out of old stumps, and sort of life coming out of basically destruction. This piece that I'm going to feature tonight is, for the most part, a little bit of a step into a different direction. It's kind of different, sweet, playful art piece. And this is it's called Foggy Memories, and it's a commemorative piece. It came at a really special time in my life to get to make it. I a friend of mine had passed, and his family gave me his saw blades, his sort of heirloom saw blades. And I found myself in the middle of a back injury and sort of not able to move much. And so I got to make an art piece slowly in like little chunks. And so I kind of want to share with you guys Trouble in Paradise here. So I'm completely laid up and want to make art. And this is the view from my studio. The slides on the left. And then this is sort of my symphony of junk inside my studio. And so the work is, it's really just a simple, you know, bringing patterns out of what's around me, that kind of thing. But yeah, this is just my process that I got to go through 20 minutes a day while kind of not very able to walk around and that sort of thing. I'm taking old saw blades and just cutting the teeth off of them and working them down. And something I'd wanted to do for quite a while. And since I had this sort of sentimental art piece to make, I thought this will be the fun one. And so I just kind of get to, you know, just play with these lines, work with them. It was a really great process. There's a sort of celebration in my work. I try to be, you know, speak kind of about what I know. I've spent time working in the woods and making artwork. And I try to make art that's worth sharing, I hope, and that people like. And my biggest goal is if I can make artwork people still like and force puns into it. That's kind of like my favorite thing to do. And the family was kind of like that too. So this was a fun place in that way. And so the Sawtooth Hills is, you know, is just kind of like right on the nose, and was sort of, I was giggling the whole time. But this is just the process, welding it in, grinding it out. The work was difficult. It wanted to warp. It really didn't want to cooperate. And so I had to throw it in my forge and rework everything. And it created a looseness. Everything got a big wave to it, and let me kind of start loosening up my work. So it was kind of a great development for me in that sense. Most of my work to date had been really about control and really rigid lines. So this piece I got to kind of share something new. It was sort of nice exploration. Next slide, please. And so this is just, you know, my work. A lot of times I'm just looking out for my studio and looking at the shapes that are around me and working on them and just putting my best into it. So this is just sort of how I get to work most of the time, looking at natural forms and just emulating. So here's a little bit of the development sort of in the color scheme. Here we've got the, what for me felt like an old sepia tone or something like that, working with the historical work is it's fun, you know, and going through our grungy colors and that sort of thing. Jade was a really important thing to the family. And so there was sort of, you know, just everything was really playful and on the nose, but it was a direction that I started, while I was trying to do something commemorative, I kind of discovered something I want to do quite a bit more of and get to share. Next slide, please. And here's just an example of similar works in this theme that I've been getting to do that are just working with patterns, working with trees, you know, historical artifacts. It's been a really awesome journey getting to work with artifacts and learn sort of where they disappear, and getting to meet old loggers, getting to meet people in art, and just sort of letting go of these things, these cool things from the 1800s, just cutting them up and getting them into new places. And it's been really great getting to share with people in this way.
Thank you, Joe.
Joe, I rushed a little bit. Is there anything you wanted to revisit of the slides?
I don't think so. Thank you.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Next up is Sylvia Rios. Sylvia has a bachelor's from San Jose State University and an MFA from San Francisco State University. She's been teaching ceramics at Cabrillo since 2004. You're muted.
That. Okay, I'm back. Thanks for coming. I have been involved with clay and had clay under my fingernails since I was like 14. And so it's really been a part of me after having gone through music majors and life and motherhood and blah, 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 blah. I am enjoying where I'm at right now, which is teaching wheel throwing at Cabrillo. Although my first involvement and my continuous involvement is hand building. The lantern you saw earlier was a student project that I have them make, and then I made one too, just as a demonstration. These are landscape forms on the left. I like to challenge myself not with throwing one tall thing, but in making large objects that are assembled. And so I plant them out in the gardens and in the woods, Sierra Sul sometimes. This is wheel thrown work. Since I teach wheel, even though I love hand building, I always feel compelled to challenge myself. So the bowls are an annual occurrence. They have an Art of Eating project in San Benito County where I live. And we donate 40 bowls, and they have a wonderful dinner by local farmers and growers. And then the other bowls, the other pieces, as these are also wheel thrown. I can't just show people how to work on the wheel. I have to do one more thing. Artwork should make you think or feel or react, be uncomfortable, or just be curious. So I try to make a simple cup and then do something else to it. The cups below were fired with barbecue ash. We didn't have a wood kiln at the time or soda kiln, so I sprayed barbecue ash on them. I have a trench at my house that is about 20 feet long, 6 feet wide, about 4 feet deep, thanks to my friend with a big backhoe. And it used to be every year in the spring, we'd have a big pit firing. But now with fire dangers, we have not had one for a few years, but I'm due, hopefully in November, to have one. So you see the hot pit and then the cooling pit, and then the results from the pit at the bottom. And again, when I'm throwing, a lot of times I have my class in mind, trying to challenge them with different ways of approaching the clay and the wheel and making it work. And here's kind of more of my origins. I can see why I'm grouped with all these nature people. We're all just kind of nature lovers. This is pieces that reflect basins. Geographical basins. The Arizona basin is in the top center. There's some dammed basin on the left in the top photograph, and then sectional where there's a grid going across the landscape, because that's how they log out wood that's how they used to log out wood in a forest. They divide it into squares and clear cut a square, and then skip a square and clear cut another square. And then the other floating piece is just a contrast between the organic forms of terrain and the man-made forms of, the damned part on the right of that gold sort of form. And this is another version. This is about 4 feet square and 18 at the back and about 3 or 4 inches at the front. But again, it refers to how we divide up land, how we map it, and then for many years, how we used it. I live in an area where there was a quarry set up in 1898 that has grandfathered into ancient mining practices and continue to dig a hole and transport the overburden or surplus rock to fill a neighboring canyon. And it's kind of a practice that bothers me a bit. I like to do hand building, and I got into baskets. And so this is a basket that's about 12, 18 inches across. I've made a couple of them at different times. And you have to make them all at once. So in a way, it's kind of a little athletic challenge of making sure that it stays damp enough and smooth it out here and there, joining it so it doesn't look like it's joined. And it all happens maybe in a day. And here's the finished piece. But I find the challenge really refreshing. I just love to make things like this. And then, of course, you start with one and you have to improvise. You continue to expand on what you're doing. It's a wheel thrown bucket and a hand-built takeout box, all made out of clay, fired to cone 10. You can bump the neck. There you go. There's some little guys. I like playing around with the baskets now and not just doing a straight basket, but making it look like it's another material. There's gobs of little frogs hopping around on the one on the right, and very little glaze, sometimes a little iron wash. But it allows me to integrate my hand building and my wheel throwing and to experiment a little bit more. And these are some extensions of the red clay work. I had a frog living in my bedroom who would croak at 3 a.m. every night. And I found myself making frogs. And so here they are, inhabiting forms, so that we found some leaves and put them together. And it was really fun to make, and especially fun when my cats thought that they were real and would attack my pieces. So, and here's a continued extension of a cone 5 porcelain frost clay. Again, it's combining the baskets and a variety of different construction techniques and molds that I made, and a little bit of glaze here and there. These are details of the piece when it's put together, which was the previous slide. And then this is a memorial. Catherine McBride touched us all in the ceramics department. So the piece on the left is a remembrance of her and all the things that she loved. And then the little wagon on the right was just something that she might have made. You know, I kind of made it in the spirit of Catherine, and it was fun. This is my last project here at on campus for a while. It's a 10 by 20 foot mural, and the little postage stamp in the upper right corner is a dedication plaque. The tiles at the bottom of the mural are about 6 inches square. They were designed and fabricated by engineering students, as were the ones around the dedication plaque. And then we had, probably 40 to 50 students, engineers, volunteers, Joe Cosentino, Sophie Lastra, and Max Rain, and many, many other people. We had a big design. We cut it up. We handed it out. I taught people how to deal with the textures and the shapes, and told them, hey, make the sky look like it's got wind blowing through it. And then we just kind of worked on it. And it took us about 2.5 years, and we're done. It opened on Wednesday.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you, Victoria. You did a great job of putting the slides together.
You're welcome.
And that mural is spectacular. It's on the engineering building on the Cabrillo campus. You got to check it out. Okay. Next up is Tobin Keller. Tobin has been teaching painting and printmaking at Cabrillo for over 30 years. He was the director of the Cabrillo Gallery for nearly 20 years. He has a BFA in painting and drawing from California College of Arts and Crafts, now CCA, and an MFA in painting from Mills College. Welcome, Tobin.
Thank you, Beverly, and thank you so much, Beverly and Victoria, for all the work that you've done with this exhibition and your hard continued work with the gallery, and your love and dedication to staff and faculty in the art department, art photo, and art history. And I am just so amazed about the people showing their work. Thank you to all the other artists that are exhibiting. I'm humbled. I'm only going to be sharing the one piece that I'm displaying in the Cabrillo Gallery, and this is it. I'm happy. I was so happy to have this piece to share. It's something that I've been working on since May. It's 53 inches by 120 inches plus. It's basically a big piece of printed paper. I call it screen painting. I use 3 stencils. And I printed this big piece of paper, which has 3 stencils. They've been modified as I print, and 4 colors. My goal was just to really keep busy. This, is happening as the pandemic begins to wane, not over at all. Sorry, Joe Biden, the pandemic is not over. But this is something I just needed to focus on. And I like working large. I like working large and being able to move around a piece. And I like also the economy of information that I work with. So when working with just 3 stencils and limited color, I force myself to do as much as I can with the materials and the screen that I have. So I'm printing with a screen. It's also known as silk screen printing, although it's not silk anymore. And it's one screen. It's one screen that has 3 stencils. Each stencil varies in size, and sometimes I do modify the stencils on the screen itself. I use 4 colors: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, also known as process colors. And I just move around my large table printing. I had the idea, well, the idea in my head came from landscape. So this is what I call my landscape. This is not a process. This process is not new, or the imagery is not necessarily new, but the format is very new. Again, I wanted to create some form of an illusion of space. Thank you for that. This gives you an idea of the scale. An illusion of space, depth, light, and certainly color value. I think one of the things that fascinates me most is the ability to push screen printing into different directions. It's a traditional print on paper with acrylic inks, but it's also it shows how I can work with limited materials and try to create something of illusion and depth, like I just said. I think one of my big influences and inspiration was an artist that I studied with at both CCAC and Mills College. Her name was Jay DeFeo. Jay was a painter. Some of you may know her paintings. Jay was an incredible person and an enormous inspiration when I was this young, inexperienced, sort of big-headed artist. Jay taught me that whatever I set my mind to, just dive deep into it. She also was the one who said that black and white was the only color I needed. And I did stick with just black and white imagery for many, many years, really thinking that, yeah, I can get a lot out of just black and white. But then, I branched into color. And I think screen printing is one of those arts where you can really utilize color in very different ways. And it's really very immediate once you understand the process of working with a screen and the stenciling process. So Jay DeFeo, I owe a lot to Jay DeFeo. Even her teaching style was an incredible influence on me. Jay, at both CCA and Mills College, Jay was really very caring with her students, and she really connected with all of us. And she would read to us, and this was that was a sort of an intimate act. Thanks, Victoria. An intimate act of connecting with students is reading to us. I also got to be her teaching assistant for a while, and then I got to be a studio assistant for her to assist with various things in her studio. But if you don't know her work, she wasn't just a painter. She was much more expansive than just painting. She worked with photography. She taught herself black and white photography. And that led into other ways of creating. She did sculpture. She also was really immersed in mixed media painting. She was part of the Beat generation. And one of the paintings that she's most known for was a painting called The Rose, which is now in the collection of the Whitney Museum of American Art. And she spent 8 years on that painting. She was dedicated to the process of making the art. So I think that just really resonated with me. And, over the course of the years, when I changed media, I changed direction, I changed whatever it is I'm doing, her inspiration, her words really keep resonating. And I think that's what's so important about having a mentor or a key inspiration in your life is, those words they really are meaningful. So as a teacher, I think that is something that I realize what I say and how I work with my student, I know has some meaning. So, I've grown to really love teaching, and I can't say any more. I think, this piece, if you want to ask any questions about it, I'm happy to answer. It kept me busy. It kept me occupied and focused. I always knew what I needed to do with this piece. And that's something wonderful. I didn't have to make up new screens. I didn't have to make up new stencils or imagery. I didn't have to change color because I knew what I needed to do. And sometimes that's enough. I don't have to invent something different because the imagery and as it evolves is what is different. And that's what keeps me going. So Thank you again. Thank you, Beverly. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you, Tobin.
Thank you, Tobin. And I think that piece is definitely enough. It's quite something. All right. Thank you all. Again, you can visit visit our gallery to see the exhibition. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Subscribe to our email newsletter. And the links are in the chat for all of the things that we've got coming up. And again, we have a talk this Thursday night with 5 more of our faculty members.
Nice.
And we're looking forward to seeing you there. All right, so now it's time for Q&A. So feel free, if you don't want to speak out loud, you can put your questions in the chat. If you do want to speak out loud, if you know how to click the raise your hand button, do that, or actually raise your hand, make some noise, unmute yourself, and we'll let you talk. And to unmute yourself, if you're not familiar, there's a row of vertical dots to the upper right of your picture. Click on unmute when you click on those dots. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Tobin.
I have a question. Sylvia, oh my God, so awesome. I love those bowls. I have the little set of the little blue bowls.
That's right, the nesting ones, yeah.
Oh my God, but it was so wonderful seeing the work. What was the time span of the work that you showed?
Well, the oldest pieces that are kind of dear to my heart, and I continue to touch on that subject for the Basin series. The 3 together were made as a triptych, and they were done maybe 20 years ago. But in the view of the fact that ceramics will be around for thousands of years, I thought it might be appropriate to share them with you now while I'm still alive.
You.
And then the wheel thrown work for the most part is relatively current. And, I've been doing the little froggies and that sort of thing. The added pieces kind of ongoing in different ways, and the baskets as well. They keep changing.
Well, I love your work. Everything that I saw tonight is just so beautiful.
Well, thank you very much. It means a lot coming from you, because I thoroughly love your work as well.
Thank you. And that's across the board. I mean, I was so inspired by everyone.
Great group of artists here. And there's lots more in the show. Sylvia, I do have a question about when you're weaving those baskets. All I can imagine is squishing those coils. I just imagine you have to be very careful because you have to join them, but they can't squish them.
No, it's you do it while it's all very fresh, and you hold it high and you lift something up, you put the coil down, you set it back down, and it goes over, and you just kind of do this. So it's like long distance coiling. And then when you pat it down, you take your hands and you compress them down a little bit, but you have to do it gradually, and you have to do it a little bit at a time, and you have to get the hang of it, because they've definitely improved from my first baskets, which were horrifying, but they work well outside or something like that. But they're a challenge to work, but keeping them damp, not using water, and working quickly is the way to go.
Interesting, like a spider.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I've also taught weaving, so putting things up and down and around each other is always something I'm drawn to.
I love that your frogs look so integrated. I've seen so many pieces of art that are kind of kitschy when they add animals, and your frogs really just were part of the clay. And I thought that's pretty impressive.
Well, if you position them and kind of think of their weight, they kind of find their place. There's actually a lizard on the mural too. If you want to go find him. He's hidden in the mural. You can find him.
I have a question for Anne. So Anne, your tree inspiration and your story was so wonderful and helped me really understand so much about what you do. But Marilyn Monroe and your dad, really? I want to know more about that. I want to know about
the reality was my dad had the largest tree surgery business in LA. And a lot of the big oak trimming came from Hollywood stars, and he was a conscientious objector in the Second World War, so he would talk about politics most of the time, and he was a very liberal person, and so he would talk to a variety of stars on their location and talk about trees and talk about politics. So he'd come home and tell us stories.
Wonderful. I didn't want to take away from your artwork, but you told that one tidbit.
Yeah.
Maryland's trees.
Yeah. They were probably very sexy.
And blonde.
Sean, I have a question. How big are your tintype plates that you're working in there in that series?
These series is 4x5 inch. I'm using a 4x5 inch view camera, but I also have an 8x10 inch Kodak view camera. So anywhere from 4x5 to 8x10 inch. But these series of portraits have been primarily 4x5.
Do you want to explain a little bit about the wet plate process and how it's so it has to be immediate kind of thing? And
yeah, so it's you can think of it like an antique Polaroid that you create the material on location with a variety of chemicals and substrates. So you take what is essentially liquid plastic. Collodion is a plastic material that was originally produced by a byproduct of the cotton industry. Collodion was actually the original surgical bandage used in medicine by hospitals and doctors, and it's kept in liquid form and sterile by the inclusion of ether and ethanol. So when you pour this collodion onto a plate of metal, the ether and alcohol evaporates, which leaves behind a translucent, microscopically thin plastic sheet that also is containing a variety of salts, so bromides, iodides, and cadmiums. You then submerge that emulsion on a plate of metal or glass into a bath of silver nitrate, which is silver that's been dissolved in nitric acid. The silver and the salts chemically bond and create silver iodides and bromides, which are silver salts, and silver salts are light sensitive. So you take that out of the portable darkroom and place it into a camera, and you have a light sensitive emulsion on a sheet of metal or glass to create a photograph with. And the process has to take place from creating the emulsion to exposing to chemically processing. All that has to take place before you can start the second image. So you have about 10 minutes of working time, depending on the temperature and the humidity, until the plate dries out. But that's plenty of time. And so I didn't include a picture on the slide. I wish I did, but I'll go into these green spaces and haul out a portable darkroom and tables and buckets and chemistry sets, cameras and tripods, and it looks completely ominous and probably illegal. And I've had cops show up at the park a few times. Yeah, it's a very hands-on process of making photographs. It's an antique process. It's a ton of fun. Yeah, but there's some chemical hazards as well. So gloves and sometimes respirators if you're working inside.
I had another question, more stylistically. Do you art direct what your models wear?
No, for this series, no. This is just like it's a project that I'm passionate about, but it's more just to keep me in the rhythm of working as a photographer, making portraits, keeping my skills honed. And when I work with, these are just like friends, and they all happen to be women in this series, but there's a lot of like couples that I shoot, a lot of male friends as well. And I always tell them, you know my work, you see my portfolio. I want you to wear what you think would be most interesting for you to be presented in a portrait. And so sometimes people wear very casual clothing, but in the work that I showed in these images, and maybe that's part of their success, is that these friends had really interesting vintage wardrobes and were interested in sort of dressing up for a tintype portrait that I think complements the aesthetic, certainly, and it places them in terms of like time in sort of the Victorialist era of the late 1800s. They look like they could be pulled out of early art photography tradition based on what they're wearing, as well as the material and aesthetic. But generally, no, I'm pretty casual and open about, what they're wearing for these images.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So Joe, I want you to talk a little bit about your patinas, because you start out with these beautiful rusty saw blades, and then you have to cut them and weld them and grind them, which of course brings them down to bare shiny metal. And then you get them back to other states that look like they've been around sitting in the weather for years.
Yeah. So I want to make up a really in-depth story about having a really sophisticated patina method. I get like point and shoot stuff from Sculpt Nouveau, and it's really, really easy. So I'll try to take on the additional things. I'll upset the work a little bit more, or like in that image, or in that art piece, the contrast between the jade and the sort of burnt umber was just from hitting it with heat and exploring, seeing where it goes. Most of my work goes through kind of a dirty, grungy phase where everything just goes really bad for a while. And that was the case with this piece too. And with a lot of work, I kind of get it to a sweet spot, take pictures, and then dive in and burn all the patina off and try it again and try it again. Yeah, so a lot of the patina work I think that's a new adventure for me to grow more in. Really simple rust point and shoot stuff. Yeah.
Thank you. So Tobin, it's really kind of mind-boggling. I try to explain to students what you're doing to create that painting, as you call it, printed painting, because they have a hard time imagining a silkscreen roving around like that on a big surface. So I think it's a great educational tool to have in the gallery. Well, I mean, all of your works have so many different technical aspects to them that are great examples for students to see. And that's one of the great benefits of these shows. But so Tobin, is your screen more like a stencil, or is it a stretched screen, correct, on a frame?
It's a standard aluminum extruded screen with a 200 mesh polyester fabric stretched to it. It has 3 stencils on it, and I've been using that screen for years, and it hasn't worn out yet. I have printed it thousands of times over and over and over again, and I'm still not giving up on that screen. It's kind of like Jada not giving up on that paint for 8 years. But
Nice.
I'm making multiple works instead of just a singular work. But I'm dedicated to my one screen.
That's very cool.
The economy.
You do a lot with a little.
That's it.
Thank you.
I also wondered, I mean, it's great that you're working. My question was about like drying, right? You have to wait for things to dry, and you're working so big. Is that kind of, it seems like it could become a very meditative, or a practice of patience.
It is. No, I know. I hear that. Victoria, it is. And so some days I will work on it. There's about an hour a day I'll work on it, and then I'll leave it and observe it. But the fun part is I don't have to wait for it to dry. I just keep moving. And yeah, I'm picking up wet ink, but I'm also putting down more ink. And I actually love it when the wet ink transfers to the back of the screen and I transfer it back to the paper. And it just moves around. It's a very painterly process, which is interesting to talk about screen printing as a painterly process, but it is. I think of my screen as a brush. It makes a mark. It's just a very static, specific kind of mark.
Yeah, it doesn't, and it ends up being a very active visual field from all these static marks. So are there any other questions or comments? Okay, well, I guess we're done then. Well, thank you all for coming, and thank you to our presenters for doing such a great job. And we'll see you on Thursday.
Thank you.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Super special to be a part of this with you guys. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank
really
you.
a great process. Thank you.
I love your trees, and they're gorgeous.
Oh, thank you, Sylvia.
Gorgeous.
Appreciate that.